Bench Opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
Welcome to Bench Opinions, everybody. I'm joined by my usual co-hosts, Dominic and Klaus.
Hello.
You boys
Hi.
well?
Yeah, well and you.
Is it disingenuous for me to ask how you are, even though we've been talking before the show started?
Well, the irony is you didn't ask me before the fucking show, so now you have to ask me now.
How are you doing?
Pleasantries were not observed. I'm fine. How are you?
This is why you don't get asked how you are. It's just not very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what must I say? If I tell you how I really am, then people think I'm ungrateful at life. And then if I say I'm too good, then I'm too fucking positive. I should stop forcing my optimism on people.
Right, this is already
so
too
then I
much.
prefer
This
to
is
not
already
say
too
anything.
much.
Otherwise, say fine.
This is why you don't ask.
You see?
Right. We're going to discuss the URC results from the weekend. A great weekend for South African rugby and their unions. We're going to look ahead at next week's fixtures and the race to the top 8. And then we're going to spend a large part of the podcast talking about the Springbok alignment camp and the youngsters coming in. So if you're not into South African rugby, stick around. This one's for you.
And if you're Irish but still want to vicariously live through us, then you can also stick around.
Otherwise, you can just, you can also just jump ahead to random parts in the podcast and tell us we're idiots. We don't mind.
Go straight to the comments and just shout at us.
Right. Let's get started. Are there any games that you guys saw from the weekend that you want to discuss first, or do we go one after the other?
I think let's go one after the other.
Chronologically.
Weekend opened with a Bulls versus Cardiff game. I don't want to tap myself on the back again, but I did predict that Cardiff are going to slip and slide, and they slip and slid.
All over Loftus.
Yeah, like down the Highveld. 40-7 by the Bulls.
Well, the weekend begun as it was going to continue, it seems, for any of the sides coming to South Africa. At least, I mean, you could argue the Dragons maybe are the ones that put up a bit more of a fight, but I think off a quick face value, you can definitely tell that there's a bit of a hangover from the Six Nations for these teams. Yeah. I think all of them sent relatively weak sides, not crazy weak sides, but I think, obviously just trying to get back into the swing of things.
I thought it was a great game. Regardless of the teams that were sent or were playing, I guess you're still going to try and play the strongest team you can with the missing players that you have. So we need to now look at like how did the Bulls play with what they had in front of them, and I think you can see change coming through. I think you can see systems coming through. And I think a game like this is going to do wonders for them in terms of their confidence and their belief in the sort of vision that Johan Ackermann has for the team. You got Elrich Lowe has been back for a couple of weeks now. Cameron Hanekom is now
on the bench,
sort of coming back into form again. So when those two are firing, then it's a really formidable loose trio that they've got. And then on top of that, their backline is really, really exciting as well.
Yeah. They rested a few players, the Bulls. They didn't necessarily play their absolute strongest team. Is it fair to say that the URC, with the way it's laid out and the Six Nations in between, does inadvertently favor SA teams just because we obviously have some periods to rest some players? It's obviously not the fault of anyone, but the Six Nations does sort of really break up some of the other teams' momentum and their squads.
I think there's ebbs and flows to the seasons. I think the season starts off the back of South Africa's rugby season, the URC, when it begins. So one could argue that some of the guys are a little bit tired there.
But none of our guys play in the Currie Cup.
Yeah,
True,
but even the Rugby Championship
goes deep into September.
True.
Exactly. So, but then you could argue that our players are fresher when the tournament starts.
Yeah.
And possibly more game ready. So I think it's always this balancing act. And then but I would argue that the Six Nations, in terms of rhythm for these sides in the Northern Hemisphere, definitely affects them more negatively than...
There are a couple of weeks where they don't play any URC at all. And then there are a couple of weeks where they play South African derbies. So... I think they have tried their absolute best to try and mitigate exactly that problem, though.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're going to look at this. This whole episode is going to be through very South African tinted glasses. I just find it like you're seeing some teams drop off, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But I think the Six Nations almost stuttered a lot of teams' progress. I mean, the Stormers, I think, could also be seen as one of them. But we're going to get to a few of the Irish sides. Bulls sort of coming into a little bit of form under Ackermann. There's they obviously lost to the Stormers the week before, but they're definitely on an upwards trend, heading towards their Champions Cup game the week after next.
And I think we always talk about peaking at the right times, I guess, in tournaments like this, right? And I think, as you said, the trend is in the right direction. There's still a lot of rugby to be played in the season, and a lot of time for Ackermann to. I mean, he's put them there with a great shout, and logic would dictate that under a new coach, if there's a bit of momentum, things most likely going to get better. And then if you add the fact that someone like Cameron Hanekom came on the weekend and had a fantastic cameo, Ulrich Loh is finding his feet again, I think it can only get better. And I think also people underestimate the time it takes someone like Ackermann to kind of not only stamp his authority on the squad, but also learn about the players that he's got at his disposal, and there's a lot of guys just growing under him, and I think that's a good trend. And like someone like Papier as well, just we'll get to the squad. It just blows my mind that he didn't really, he hasn't gotten into the alignment camp. Never mind any of the squads, but it'll put the Bulls in good stead for sure.
I don't think we can forget the damage that Jake White had done to that team. Right, he had in the sense that he had completely lost the locker room. Right, people were sort of creating like secret societies to go against him, type of thing, because they were so displeased by his behavior, his management style, and all these different things. So for a guy like Johan Ackermann to step in and then win that confidence back, it's going to take some time, and it has taken time. But as Dominic says, I think they are starting to come into their peak, I guess, for this tournament especially. But as Dominic also said, there's still a lot of rugby ahead, and we'll talk about the remaining fixtures. It's not going to be easy for them because they're currently 8th, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
They are, yes.
And they are at like 38 points or something like that.
30 points currently.
30 points.
Connacht are also on 30. So and Ospreys are right behind on 29. Yeah. We'll get to the fixtures.
We'll get to that later, but you would think that they would need to win at least 3 games.
Yeah.
Out of the remaining 5.
Yeah.
So and some of those are away, right? So
some
not all
of them
at
are
home.
away, but I've just had a peek, and I think
it's doable.
I think it's doable.
Okay.
Let's move on. Scarlets beat Zebre 36-17. I think most of us would have probably predicted that. Zebre are at a point now where they can make some people sweat, but they're probably still a little bit too splotchy in their form to, beat the teams around them when it's away from home.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. I look at these fixtures when we predict, and a lot of the time I'm thinking it could go either way. I think the margins are so fine in these sides. I think there's such parity in terms of the squads that are playing against each other. If a couple of the Zebra players show up or tend to have a good day, or one of the key positions does well, then these teams can beat each other relatively easy.
Yeah. I think an interesting game was an Irish derby between Ulster and Connacht, because that to me is 2 teams that are heading in different directions currently. Connacht sort of coming into form, fighting for the top 8. Ulster aren't necessarily plummeting, but it definitely looks like they're getting a bit long in the legs there, with a few of their players called up to the Irish team this year. I think they might have a fight on their hands. They are comfortably sitting, I think, in 3rd or 4th, so they have sort of built themselves a little bit of a buffer. But I do think this was a shock for them to lose to Connacht at home.
Yeah, and their key players really becoming key players. Someone like McCluskey, key players becoming really key for the Irish. So I think Ulster probably in the past had a lot of guys in and around the Irish squad, but I would argue that this is probably one of the Six Nations where they probably got the most minutes under their belt, at least for their key players for the Irish side as well, with McCluskey breaking through, and then who's the Stockdale as well, who's a big important player for them, getting a lot of minutes. So a new territory, I would argue, maybe for them.
The problem that Ulster has is that they don't have as deep or as broad of a squad. So when they do lose their top players, whether that be through international sort of duties or whether that be to injury,
or when they're just not in form.
or if they're not in form, or
Yeah.
if they just don't want, or maybe they've got a birthday on the weekend that they just can't attend.
Now you're accusing them of something that...
There's many possibilities.
Or they're
What
playing
a-
one of the other 4 sports that they play in
Ah,
Ireland.
Everyone except for Werner Koch.
exactly. Well, I was
And-
actually going to say that's the other issue, right? Or not issue, but that's the other thing that one needs to consider is that Leinster does have a couple of international players from outside of Ireland, so they're not going to be called up for those types of duties. But Ulster is really hit hard by that.
Yeah. Let's move on to the second South African game, which I don't know. I did think the Lions would win, but not in that fashion. That was a statement performance, albeit against a not so strong Edinburgh team this year, but it must be good to see for you boys.
That's because you're a hater.
Not a hater.
The thing is,
You're from Johannesburg and you don't support the
We
Lions.
don't have to get into it.
what I would like to say earnestly about this is that what I like is that in the past, these are games that, as a Lions fan, if you think they're trending in the right direction, these are games that you would think, okay, these are the ones that we have to win to kind of make a difference in the season. A lot of the times, they would maybe not show up or not get the
Or
job
scrape
done.
by.
Exactly, and this very clearly, there's a vein of form here that continues to grow, and I think off the back of doing really well in the local derbies, winning the local
SA
shield,
winners, yeah.
So, and I think that was always I think I said it was like if you're doing so well against teams back home, that's the ideal foundation to go and build something and get into the playoffs, and so it's good to see them continue winning games. And these are the games they have to win if they're getting into the playoffs.
So we'll get to their fixtures, their remaining fixtures just now. You guys have an interesting one to run in because some good home games, but also some tough opposition. It was a steam train though, and I think especially when we get to some of the young Springbok prospects, or definitely exciting young South Africans, the Lions have a lot of them in their team. Starting obviously with a few of the SA under-20s that are in the squad. We talk about Bronson Mills and Van Wyk as a centre partnership. What did that one guy say on...
Perfect combination of what's it?
Northern and southern suburbs.
like...
Four ways in Alberton.
Yeah.
Unite.
Could even be Edenvale and Alberton.
Yeah. I think that's the nice thing that you see with the Lions now. You know, in years gone by, you often would have a squad where, I'll be quite honest, even as a Lions fan, I could never remember the names of the players because
Gone so quickly.
they were gone so quickly, or
Don't you worry, these boys are all coming to the Stormers next year.
or I hope not, or they were injured, and then you had your second string, third string guys coming on, and it was like very disruptive. Whereas these guys seem to be having a good run as the starting 23, 30 players. So you see them week in, week out. And then they're also playing very well. So, you know, emotionally, you're like, oh my God, this is pretty impressive. Then you start remembering things a little bit better. But you look at the spine of the team, you know, Frankie Horn has been there 4 years now. But he's such a solid, consistent player.
Yeah.
And then you have a guy like Ruan Fenter right next to him, and you have Asanati in
he's
Klabakanya.
really growing into a leadership role.
You know, so these guys have been there for a couple of seasons now, and this nice spine of the team is developing. And then you obviously have your speedy guys like your Morne van den Berg, your Henko van Wyk, Bronson Mills, Angelo Davids coming from Blitzbox, but then also from Stormers. I think he was at the Stormers,
Yes, Stormers.
and then obviously you've got the solid fullback in Q and Horn. So you've got this great spine that's developed, and then you can start interchanging guys with like Slikani, who's on loan from the Sharks, I think, still.
Yeah.
Maybe it turns into a full contract.
Would be great
Because
to
I don't
see.
know what his chances are of getting much game time at the Sharks. So maybe staying at the Lions is going to be more beneficial to his long-term goals and aspiration. What I assume are his aspirations of becoming a Springbok.
But definitely a trend there in the Lions selling themselves as a place where you can get minutes under your belt as a rugby player, as a professional. And I think that's what's attractive. I think that's how they attracted someone like Hashim Peed, who, albeit hasn't gotten the minutes that everyone hoped for, wanted to see.
He's still stuck behind Morne,
Difficult
right?
to get by Morne. But yeah, what a great way. You mean the Lions have to do extra work to sell themselves as a union, and I think it's clever positioning to say, hey, and of course, you know, the danger is that you're selling yourself as that with the inevitability of being a stepping stone to somewhere else. But if you can benefit in the short to medium term from having these guys there and saying, we can provide a shop window for you to go and build yourself as a rugby player, then I think that's a smart and very realistic, pragmatic way to look at building squads.
I think you also have to look at the type of rugby you play in Johannesburg at the Lions. I think it's, every union sort of has its own style. A few of them might have a few similarities, but the Lions are definitely the ones that stand out the most when it comes to free-flowing rugby, tossing the pill around and giving people sort of a lot of space to express themselves. Sometimes it looks a little bit loose for my liking, but what I do like to see is that you guys have sort of made Joburg into a little bit of a fortress this season. And the advantage that you guys have of playing at altitude and understanding the ball and how it moves and kicking has been really good. Because I think teams do come, and you saw it with Edinburgh, they do realize they're at altitude, but they're maybe not as trained in sort of going for the right 50-22s, where to put the ball, things like that when they kick. So, like I said, we'll go through their fixtures later.
Playing loose is all well and good, and like it is obviously the more exciting rugby to watch, but you have to either have solid defense or you need to have a solid defensive setup. And I think, playing against Edinburgh, albeit at home, but 54-17, like they've still been able to sort of shut them out for the most part.
And you can tell me what you want, but no matter how fit, but how these doesn't matter how fit these players are. Like the 4 or 5 day turnaround at altitude is the Lions have an advantage.
When I go on holiday there, I'm panting.
And then throwing the pull around is exactly what you want to do because you're going to exploit the inevitable tiredness in the lungs of the opponent. So there seems to be just like I said, there just seems to be a bit more put together. The Lions, they've it's almost like a penny's dropped, and it's like, okay, more so than ever, this is who we are, and this is our trajectory. And we're going to also be honest with ourselves. And that's the kind of squad of players and the style that has kind of been put together.
Absolutely. Let's go to the next game. I think one where the scoreline definitely would shock us all is the Hollywood Bet Sharks shutting out Munster 45-0, albeit in Durban. I do think the Sharks are on an upward trend and Munster are struggling a little bit. But definitely good signs for JP Peterson there.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's not a little bit of a reaction to the initial euphoria, and then sort of go. I think what can often happen, sort of with a new coach like JP Peterson, he comes in, he there was a bit of a new manager bounce, as we call it in football, amongst the side. But what happens is often, those games come thick and fast, and I don't think it helped him that they were local derbies, because I think. I just think it's not the ideal way to get going, and you're maybe not able to kind of spend the time with the guys, getting them ready the way you possibly wanted to, or instilling more of a cultural element to it. And I think it's an easier sell, maybe having sort of guys come to the Shark Tank, someone like Munster off the back of the Six Nations to go, hey guys, this is where we start really kicking on. That's and that's why it seems like a bit of a reaction to maybe a bit of disappointment within the ranks after starting well under JP Peterson.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a lot to do to get into the top 8.
I think they have to win every single game with a bonus point kind of thing just to get in there. But look, it's all possible. It can definitely happen, but the chances you would think are fairly slim. The thing that is nice to see is that if you looked at the squad that was playing on the weekend, they lost Siya Kolisi through, let's be honest, it's probably cholera or something, because he got a tummy bug. So they lost him.
Was he swimming in Cape Town there?
Or swimming in Durban.
Or swimming in Durban.
So he fell ill, I think, the day of. And then Ethan Hooker, because of personal reasons, I think his mother passed. His dad passed. Yeah. So he also then was removed from the squad. So, you have guys stepping up, and like replacing 2 Springboks is a tall order, and the guys who came and they did it.
The guy who stuck out the most was Luan Guillaume.
Nailed it.
Guillaume, if he's Afrikaans.
Guillaume, I think is other Afrikaans pronounced. Anyway, he was phenomenal. I mean, on debut, scoring a try, assisting, I think, another 2.
Fish to water, as you would say.
Fish to water. So they were
Shark to the Shark Tank.
They're talking about BMT, but the guy has played for the Blitzbox a little bit, so
Yeah.
he's gotten like a bigger stage sort of experience. But man,
one thing
it's not like Munster were lying down and letting themselves be run over. Like they put up a fight, and for him to shine the way he did on debut, very impressive.
The one thing I do hope to God is not true that people were saying about him was that he reminded them of Pat Lambie.
Oh my God.
Fuck that.
Yeah, but I mean,
you reminded me more of Cohen Bosch.
Oh, also not good.
Did you see his hairstyle?
It's not his hair. Can we? Yeah.
I mean, listen, Pat Lambie, I don't think you're allowed to say something, or all the Sharks fans in the world sort of immediately land up in your comments and accuse you of being an idiot.
It's fine. He's in real estate now. He's doing well.
All right, next up, Benetton beat the Ospreys 31-19. Benetton also doing what's needed to...
Big win for them.
Yeah.
Those are also similar to the Lions, I would argue that.
I mean,
those are the kind of games they have to win if they're going to get into the top 8.
I don't think they're going to get into the top 8. I mean, I'm looking at the log now, and it's got the top 12 teams in it, and Benetton isn't on it.
Okay.
That was before this
there you
game
have
week. Whereas Ospreys are close, or are in the top 8. No, the 10th. So they need to win games like this. That could also be a little bit of a hangover the break. The big game of the match weekend was Glasgow against Leinster. 38-17 to Glasgow.
Yep.
So Leinster still in a little bit of no man's land.
I mean, Leinster's still going to qualify for the top 8.
No, that's not what I mean. But, by their lofty standards, this has not really been the greatest URC season for them.
No, it hasn't.
Large criticisms going out to there's a lot of like structural systemic criticism going on at Leinster, and I don't know if that's from non-Leinster fans in Ireland, but I've been seeing it on X, and also like a lot of people really calling out the Ioane deal, going like, what have you done, because he was so off the pace, and people really criticizing and asking themselves, is this really where we should be spending our money as a union?
Maybe the whole what's his name,
Barrett
thing sort of glossed over, like, and they just thought maybe they can just copy and paste another Kiwi in there and it would have the same effect.
Not any Kiwi that you bring over is going to be the same.
Also, I would argue that, like, I think Ioane's been on a relatively bad trajectory for the last couple years, even in an All Black jersey.
Yeah.
So I think that was the premise. The premise was, who can we get? And I assume it has certain commercial elements to it as well. To try and prop up the brand that is Leinster to attract players of that ilk. But at the end of the day, they got to do a job on the pitch. I would say Barrett really did do that when he elevated that team. But Ioane has been, I mean, I watched someone put together a montage, and I know montages can be very, but he looked like he was out of his league.
The systemic problems that people are criticizing, what are they targeting? Like the management or the coaches?
Well, I think people are arguing that if a lot, and again, it's people outside of the Leinster bubble are arguing these guys should be dominant, and that Irish rugby pools a lot of the money together to prop up Leinster, right? And I think it's also something that is criticized at a local level, that like so many of the professional rugby players are Dublin or Dublin surrounds. So like I think they're saying that they may be overcapitalized on the whole Leinster thing, and shouldn't we be promoting rugby across Ireland more and giving some of the other clubs also a bit more resources, and particularly the Ioane thing on the back of that. I think it puts the cherry on top of it. Is like, I think they're spending, I think it's 800,000 euros or something that Ioane has gotten his deal's worth, which is
it's big
amount of money. Those are the figures that I remember seeing, which is just so far out of it blows the wage structure out of the water in terms of Leinster. So I think they just think it's a little top heavy.
I wonder if Leinster have earmarked this season as one where they want to give the European competition a bit more of a go, because I think they've realized they can't really do both.
That's an interesting point, because that's what I'm thinking in the back of my head, and I'm hoping it's not true. But are we missing are the South African sides missing a trick to a certain degree here? Of course, we want to get into it, but after a weekend like this, where it's so lopsided, I sometimes think, are they planning something that we should maybe be doing? Is there squad management going on that we should try and look to do as well? Because we've had this topic in the past, and only the results in the European competition is going to show us that. but it's just me playing the devil's advocate.
I mean, I like the theory. The thing is that I feel they have often played a strong team. Like their own squad has been strong, and they still haven't performed. So
they haven't rested players necessarily. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit far fetched because I don't think they've lit it up in the Investec Champions Cup either. Albeit that I think they did go unbeaten. I'm not sure. Let me not get into that territory.
I think you should make bold statements with.
But I think for the South African unions, it's so important for us financially to get into that competition. So that it's, looking at the Sharks this year, I think obviously they're the richest union, so I think they're the ones who could stand to miss out the most. For you guys, for the Lions to get in, really, I think provides some real necessary financial injection.
Treble our income.
Pay for the rental of that huge stadium that's never full.
Jesus.
In the last game of the weekend, the Stormers, you would have to almost say, like, limped past Dragons 29-21. A lot of errors on the Stormers side, no real flow. A lot of the impact players making a lot of mistakes or not really managing to light it up. I know Willemse tries to inject some creativity, but sometimes if there's not a gap, there's not a gap. And Sasha also not really up to his standards that he's set.
Well, I mean, Sasha played pretty well. He scored 2 tries himself and slotted all of his conversions, but I don't think he slotted any of his penalties.
Yeah, and his playmaking I don't think was as elusive as he sometimes likes to be.
I don't think he had anything to go off of. There was just no, up front, the forwards just weren't creating any space on the rest of the field. So when it came to like phase 5 and, the standard sort of South African DNA is, okay, cool, we're going to kick it or we're going to try and run it. There was just nothing to kick to because, everything was covered. All the oppositions were on their feet. So, bit of a tough day to sort of look at that on his sort of performance, but he still went on and scored 2 tries. So I don't think that's too bad. The problem is that you've got Stormers who are second, third?
We are second, yeah.
Second? Now second? I think you guys were third before the weekend. Playing against Dragons who are last?
Yeah.
Last, close to last. 29-21 is
not big enough.
It's not.
I mean, listen, they got the bonus point, and maybe it's a question of, just get through the motions, beat the teams you have to beat.
We've spoken about this before. I think there's a little bit of an issue with decision making in that Stormers side as well. They've got the highest number of losses of the ball in contact as well. For example, in the whole of the URC.
Yeah.
We've spoken Evan Rose is someone who gets a lot of flack for not holding onto the ball, not securing the ball, but someone did a graphic this weekend of that he's up there, but he's like Sasha. A bunch of these guys actually lose the ball far more in contact as well.
Maybe their playing style, or that leads into their playing style because they try to offload a lot.
Exactly.
In contact.
Yeah.
And if you're holding the ball with the idea of passing it when you're tackled, I guess.
Sure.
Easier to rip.
I guess you have to make an assessment as to the risk, whether the risk is worth the reward, or if just getting through phases maybe when you're dominant against teams. Because I think if you are dominant in terms of territory and possession against teams, and you're often trying the audacious and you're not getting through the phases against these sides and knocking the ball on or losing the ball, that takes momentum out and it gives an opposition that's actually under the cosh, or an opposition that's actually struggling to keep their head above water, chances to kind of breathe.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that was really crazy about that game, because I think in the first half, I think the Stormers, and I hope I'm not mixing this up with another game, I think the Stormers had 70% possession, 72% territory.
Yeah.
And they still weren't running away with the game. So you ask yourself, well, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Let's see. I think they're playing Edinburgh this weekend. And they have to have an eye on the weekend following, which is their Champions Cup game, I believe, against Toulon. So I don't know if they play a second string side, knowing what Edinburgh did against the Lions, or if they believe they can't afford it. Let's go into some of the race to the top 8 fixtures for the South African teams exclusively. If you look at the Stormers, they do have 2 winnable games at home against Edinburgh, Connacht, before they have to face Glasgow at home, Ulster away, and Cardiff away. So those are 3 tough games to finish the season. But I think the Stormers are quite safe. in that top 8 race.
I agree.
But I think if you're currently in second, you're not looking to finish just top 8.
No.
You want to get those home semi-finals and
semi-finals.
quarterfinals and whatnot. So, if you look at the table and you look at the points, Munster's in 6th and they're only 2 points behind the Stormers. So that can shift very quickly.
I would
And then
argue, though,
suddenly-
that Munster's fixtures are a lot tougher coming in. They have to play the Bulls away. They have to play Benetton away. Ulster, Connacht away, and I guess it's a mixed bag. I don't think that Munster are in form, though. I do think that a lot of the other teams, like Leinster, for example, their home games are against Scarlets, the Lions, and Ospreys. That's also not, you'd want to have a few of the bigger games at home. If we're looking at South African teams, though, the Lions have an interesting run home. So you guys play Dragons at home, which should be winnable.
Yeah.
Based on how you guys played against Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Then you play Glasgow at home. Now, this is one
that's tough.
that's tough. But
That's big.
But
That's,
the fact that it's in
but
Joburg.
but what are Glasgow surely are still in Europe as well, right?
They are, yes.
So it'll be interesting to see, because if Glasgow, let's look at you look at the Glasgow fixtures, and I think it's all right. I mean, they also still have 2 home games against Connacht and Cardiff, who I think even Cardiff, if you're playing Cardiff at home, you back yourself.
Yeah.
So I would argue that they're looking at the board and going, which fixtures can we afford to play a second string side and not have it really affect our position at the top? Then the Lions is probably one of them, with the travel, considering the travel.
I mean, it would be
involved.
great for you guys if it did happen.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you guys play a full strength Glasgow team though in Joburg and see what you guys can do.
True.
Because Glasgow, albeit that they're top, they're not playing the most stable rugby this season. I mean, listen, they're top of the league and they have been in contention in the last 3 seasons, so they're super stable, but they're not necessarily lighting things on fire.
I think what's cool this season is definitely the league has definitely become more competitive towards the top end. I would argue, if you look at, like Klaus says, you look at the 2-point difference between second and sixth, and then you look at the next grouping below that. So much can still happen.
Yeah.
It's obviously helped by the fact that Leinster, that are usually very dominant during the group phase, maybe aren't as dominant this time around. But it says a lot, I think, for the strength of the product that is the URC. Yeah. And yeah, Glasgow seem to get results from any game where they've put themselves in a position they seem to execute. So, there's a lot of other teams that will maybe sometimes, with the margins being so fine, a lot of the times the ball can roll either way. And Glasgow seem to have that season where every time they've gotten ahead, they've actually managed to turn it into points. Whereas a lot of the other times when it's so close, I guess it's the rub of the green as well to a certain degree. Which teams are you playing at home? I think Glasgow have had some good fixtures as home at the right times this season.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What I think becomes clear when you look at this is that I think you guys need to secure your top 8 form before the last 2 games. Your top 8 spot, because you guys play Leinster and Munster away to finish the season, and away from home has not necessarily been your strength. So try and win 3 of those games. Try win 2 of those games, and see where that leaves you.
I don't know if 2 is
I
enough.
don't think 2 is enough. I think last year we were talking about if you get 40 points or more, then you're in the top 8. And now looking at it, it's like, you might have to get more closer to like high 40s to secure your win.
Yeah. Well, having said that, though, a lot of the teams sort of are beating each other. I think there's less dominant sides, so maybe there is an opportunity.
So
there
are we saying that you guys need to beat either Glasgow at home or Munster away?
Yeah.
Or Leinster.
Yeah, I mean,
If Leinster decides, they're not going to play their
the Bulls, if you look at the fixtures, have sort of their ideal run home. So they play Munster at home, then they play the Dragons and Scarlets away, where they could give themselves a chance of winning both, and then they play Zebra and Benetton at home. So they can really put in a charge to, if they, let's put it down. They could go unbeaten.
I would argue what they have in there is that it sounds stupid, but like they're one of the teams where I'm like, it's in their own hands, in the sense that no matter what kind of side these teams play, right?
Yeah.
That are ahead of them. So none of these variables of, are they going to play full strength? Are they not? Whatever. I'd argue that every single side there, looking at the fixtures, the Bulls would say, okay, we can win this game. And therefore, I mean, it's like in their own hands. I think if they don't get through, that will probably down to their performances as opposed to too much of anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could sweep the end of the season.
So I think they need at least 4 wins out of the 5 to like properly secure themselves, to go through. And I think Scarlet's away because they haven't been traveling very well this year either.
Yeah.
So Scarlet's away, I think, is the one sort of slip up. So Munster at home this weekend coming is going to be very important for them to get a win, just to give themselves a little bit of breathing space.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last one we're going to talk about is the Sharks, who are, I mean, they really only have an outside chance. They sit 11th, and they play Cardiff at home, Ospreys and Edinburgh away, which I think Ospreys is a tough one away. Edinburgh, you never know. Then they play Benetton and Zebra.
Yeah, they get to 44 points. No, well, they've now won this game, so they're on now 29. So they get 49 points if they win the rest of their fixtures.
Yeah, and I mean,
which is it doesn't seem like enough if you do the quick maths.
Yeah, and I think Connacht
With a bonus point,
are coming into form. Connacht has a really tough run in. They play Ulster, they played Ulster. They play Ospreys at home. The Stormers and the Lions away are both not easy. Munster at home and Edinburgh seems to be where they need to pick up their points come the end of the season.
Connacht are one of those teams where, I was trying to explain myself with Glasgow and like having this sort of weird tendency of just getting the job done. Connacht are one of those teams that I find every time you feel like, oh, okay, they're on a run here. Their starting 15 looks good. They've got a couple guys in form. They tend to lose games surprisingly.
Yeah.
They kind of sort of just don't quite get it across the line or don't show up or whatever, I find with Connacht. I mean, they've just built their new big stadium, so maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they, or not stadium, big new stand. I wouldn't be surprised if that helps them moving forward because I think they went from something like 1,800 or 2,000 seats or standing spots to like the one stand now is almost 3,000 people. So that'll be cool. And it's open now. But yeah, it's just been, I've always found with Connacht, I really like them. And they always have a couple of guys like your Bandiakis, an old mate with the cornrows, whatever his name is, the front rower.
Beelum.
Yeah, Beelum. So they have guys and you're like, oh, okay, they seem to be chugging along now. But then they just kept sort of hitting potholes along the way.
Yeah. Potential for a few upsets. I think it's one of the greatest. Can't agree. That's URC hasn't been around for that long enough. It's definitely a cool run into the final weeks because, like we said, it's so compromised. There's a lot of teams can still qualify or miss out.
And I must say, my sort of little bit of a not underdog, but my little bit of a favorite is Cardiff. I really hope Cardiff just.
Listen, I mean, I wasn't going to go too deep into this, but
no,
I think they've got the toughest run in.
I hope they kick
to try and sort of turn things around.
With the whole storm around Welsh rugby, it would be nice to them to just.
I think the way that the top 8 is currently sitting might be the way the top 8 will probably finish.
Okay, I think there was one pundit on SuperSport who put all 4 South African unions in the top 8.
I don't see the Sharks getting there.
But even on 49 points, it just doesn't seem like enough.
Yeah. Okay. That's enough for the URC. We're going to switch now over to the Springbok alignment camps that already happened. Listen, we know that just because you've been invited to an alignment camp doesn't mean that your future as a Springbok is necessarily set. It's sort of Rassie and the team like to use it, I think, to introduce people to what it's like to be at those alignment camps, what the process is, what their thinking is going into seasons,
future prospects,
and just sort of maybe also give the public a look at who they're looking at when it comes to Springboks. Let's talk about some of the standouts that you guys have seen. First of all, who is either of your most exciting player in the Springbok alignment camp that hasn't been there before? Yeah.
Like hasn't played or hasn't been in the alignment camp?
Hasn't played.
I think I'll go one forward and one back. I think forwards hasn't played yet. I'd like to see what Shlekani can do.
Mm-hmm.
Playing for the Lions currently, so he's pretty entertaining. He's also got a lot of athleticism. He's quite a fast player, but also quite a bulky guy, so he can he can take a hit or give a hit. And then I think from the backs, I'm very excited to see how Sebastian de Klerk fits into the fold, because we have these outstanding wingers. So to see what his step up is like into a test level, that's, I think, going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
For me, it's actually, I mean, I've been banging the drum about him for a long time as JJ van der Mescht, and there's a multitude of reasons why. I think, first of all, very interesting that he left South Africa not really being able to establish himself, and has gone to Northampton Saints and has really just grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, both in terms of hype around him, but also just week in and week out performances, consistency. He's very highly rated in the UK. But I also think the lock position is an interesting one for South Africa, because I think particularly with someone like Ibn Etzebeth, who gives you a little bit of something else, on top of sort of the basic skill set of a lock. I really like the idea of Van der Mescht being there with his size, but also just, he likes to run with the ball. He likes to carry the ball. And he just offers that. I think his very existence is an X factor, his size and his skill set. And I do think there is room in our lock options to have someone like him come in. He's 26, so he's got a lot of experience. And yet he still brings a very exciting, fresh energy, I would argue, to the group. Let's see how it works out, because we've seen it with some of the guys in the past that a lot of people got excited about. For example, like Augustus, who were in their lineman camp, and obviously Augustus got injured, which was unfortunate for him. Where I think a lot of people get excited and they're like, "Oh, here we go," and then they don't quite ever crack the team. Even someone like Evan Roos is even someone who everyone is super excited about, and they just don't quite cut the mustard. But I think he comes in there at the right time, and I think it's a bit of a shrewd selection there as well.
If I'm a prop in a line out and I look behind me and I've got to pick up JJ van der Mescht,
I'm not excited.
I would be
Not
so
excited.
bleak.
I mean, listen, we're talking about Wilco Low here, and I think Wilco just lifts him with one arm like this.
Yeah.
I think for me, the most excited one, or the one that I'm most excited for, is Paul de Villiers from the Stormers.
Yeah,
he's had
great.
such a great season. And I mean, South African rugby is so blessed in the back row. I mean, Cameron Honeycomb is someone coming back, and people maybe sometimes forget how young he also is.
But he's played. Didn't he come off the bench once?
He did.
Yeah. He's just as someone also in the back row.
I was going to say, because that's who I would have said, but
I think
the rules stipulated I was not allowed
to pick up on your point though, there, I think that's the really exciting part of the way Rassie operates, but also particularly with the Lions players that I find is quite exciting and interesting is you've got a lot of guys there that are still young, haven't really had their chance in the green and gold yet, but have a vast amount of experience at the highest level and have been exposed through these alignment camps, which in themselves are innovative, to what it is that Rassie is trying to achieve, what kind of players they're looking for, what levels they expect from the guys. And I think that's the genius in this kind of setup.
Yeah, listen, one position that's interesting to see in this alignment camp is the position of scrum half. You spoke about Ambrose Papier just now. There's youngsters like Imad Khan and Hassim Peed who are bursting through, but he's invited Faf de Klerk and Herschel Yankees to this alignment camp, which sort of, I think, just brings it back to he'll pick some youngsters and he'll give people a chance, but he also doesn't mind going back to some older heads, people who fans might have forgotten, especially in I don't know, Herschel Yankees really fell off after that 2019 season. So interesting to see him back.
But he's someone who made the move overseas, which I think is also quite an interesting element to the players that Rassie chooses. I think there's always these major conspiracies as to like, ooh, are we, is he sending people overseas to spy on? But and I think that's obviously a bit too much of a conspiracy theory nonsense. But I do think there's a lot of value that these players have to add when they're playing in other leagues and being exposed to other ways of play, particularly if they leave for those other leagues already having dipped their toe in the Springbok pond, because they go there knowing exactly what it is that Rassie's looking for.
Yeah.
Bringing these old heads back makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you could transfer that same strategy onto like businesses. Like why get rid of somebody who's been working in a company for 10 years and you lose all of that intellectual property, even though the hunger might not be there, or these guys in this case physically maybe can't run as fast anymore or can't tackle as hard or don't have the bulk anymore, but that intellectual property is going lost if you just send them on their merry way. So bring them back, let them sort of train the new guys coming through. And I think, as a coach, you can instill strategies, you can instill vision, like higher purposes and all these different things. But I think having a guy who's playing, like still currently playing, really coach the new guys in that system, they're going to understand the system way better than a coach does from the outside looking in.
And I mean, it is only an alignment camp. That's not to say that Faf de Klerk or Herschel Yankees would even be in the squad, but it's probably worth keeping them in the loop on where the Springboks are going with their strategy. On a different note, if any of you find Klaus's business talks online and his TED Talks, please feel free to share those with us, because I do think he's got a second career that he's not telling us about. Selling online business courses.
Yeah, but it's faceless, so you'll never know.
I think one that we're all excited to see in the alignment camp and that we hope gets a chance is someone like Kieran Horn, because the fullback position is one that once we see a few injuries, Apelele Fassi's out for a long time now, he would be a great replacement in my eyes, and I wish that he would get a chance. But I think we're also equally as excited to see both the Chituka brothers in the alignment.
Again,
Finally.
they fall under this the crop I mentioned that are just like it's not a leap to see them in green and gold.
No.
I know it was Vincent. It's Vincent that's played.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I know he's been in the green and gold. But like it's just neither of them. It's not a leap because they've been in and around it for so long. You associated their names for so long. I mean, Vincent even had, I would argue, a couple of very good games, and I was surprised not to see more of him. After his,
I thought he only had one.
I think he had one.
Yeah, but he had but it was a good one, and it was in that July Test
Georgia?
series against Georgia, Italy, one of those two.
Georgia or the Barbarians? Is one
not
of the,
Barbarians. No, I don't think it was Barbarians. But and those are the guys that I think Kieran Horn falls into that as well. Did he pick Henko van Veeks around there as well?
So.
No, which is a surprise, to be honest. But those are the guys that they've just been around there and yet they're not even mid-20s yet.
Yeah. Maybe a few last ones to speak about are Kai Pratt. Rassie has been someone who's taken guys out of spheres where maybe you think they're still very far from being Springboks, but just sort of let them dip their toes in. He did it with Cheswell Jooster, and now he's done it with Kai Pratt as well.
And Porten as well. Because Porten was, I would say, very similar to the Kai Pratt decision, because they just realized what a formidable scrummager he was at his age already. And I think,
because Porten came straight from Varsity Cup, didn't he? Didn't he? I think he was signed to the Stormers, but he hadn't yet played for the Stormers, and he was already in alignment camp or something like that.
That could be. And then obviously there's talents that are not in the alignment camp, young ones. We spoke about Chilomia, Bronson Mills, Henko van Veek. So there's definitely a lot of other guys that are not in the alignment camp, but youngsters coming through.
And also, sorry, one more mention. Also, what I like about Rassie as well is he's also someone, I wouldn't call it second chances, but once he's seen the quality and has seen trust in certain players, he gives them enough time to hang around that squad in order to possibly find form again. The two that stand out to me are the brothers, Jaden and Jordan Hendrickse. I know Jaden has found a little bit more form now under JP Peterson again, but I think if you were quickly to say, do you think they on merit at the moment, as things stand, deserve to be anywhere close to a squad? I know this is an alignment kind of squad. Most people would probably say no, but they've been there before. And again, it's this sort of mixture of continuity, but also giving chances to people that some of us have never even heard of, if we're being honest.
Yeah. What I'm also really enjoying about these alignment camps is there seems to be a lot more Lions players getting an invite.
Wow.
That's such a brazen...
That was super blunt. What I'm enjoying about this whole Springbok alignment thing is that you guys have really focused on Lions.
Yes. So it's two reasons. One, I think the only reason you would start looking at players from the Lions is if the Lions are actually playing well and those players are performing, right? So their selection is warranted. What is, I think, good in terms of like a philosophical sense is that I'm getting way too deep on this.
Business, philosophy.
Dude,
Philosophizer.
I'm a jack of all trades. What I think is really interesting is that a lot of players at the Lions, as soon as they found some sort of form, they've been picked by other franchises, right? Whether they go to the Stormers or they go to the Bulls or they go to the Sharks. And I think that can often obviously be a financial decision. It could be a lifestyle decision, going down to Cape Town, for example. But it can also be, this is good for my career in terms of my chances of getting into the Springbok camp. And I think with him making these picks and bringing guys into the alignment camp, by all means, they're not necessarily going to be in the team. But I think it's opening up people's sort of ideas of, oh, okay, I don't have to move. I can play here and I still will be sort of observed by the higher ups.
And inadvertently, that strengthens the Lions' approach to saying, we can give you the right sort of foundation to get into this kind of situation. So
exactly,
all of this is going to come crumbling down when you lose to the Dragons next weekend. But yeah, great to see a lot of Lions in the alignment camp. Are there any other youngsters you guys want to talk about? Other than the three sitting on this couch?
Yeah.
I wish we could still call ourselves youngsters.
It's tough that, I mean, essentially all the Springboks are now younger than us, which...
Damn, Dion Free used to make me feel so good about myself.
Chesel Eustis,
Brock
an interesting one.
There's...
Little shout out to Mapimpi.
Yeah,
he's there, and he also just played his 100th game for
great
the
try
Sharks.
he scored.
2 tries in 2 minutes.
The last one was
unreal.
That whole team got very excited for
him.
They
were stoked for him.
Kalu Sadi is in the team, which was nice to see. We don't really have that many. No, let me not. That I was going down the wrong path there. I said not many people playing overseas there, but half our team plays in Japan and basically just rests there, according to international pundits.
Special mention though to you mentioned him. He made his debut for the Sharks at fullback on the weekend. Interesting. He's had a lot of play for the Springbok Sevens for the Blitzboks, and the Blitzboks winning the World Series can only, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, can only benefit us. I think we have shown in the past that people like Kwagga Smith can go and get really good foundations and great skill sets and be in and around this, which is a Springbok setup indirectly, and benefit amazingly through that. So
Brian
interesting
Habana.
Sinatla had a similar sort of, he had a trajectory that was quite steep, but I think he got injured a little bit. But yeah, the Sevens has always been a nice incubator for some union players for us. So long may that continue, even though we have spoken about the unfortunate decline of Sevens rugby. Ironically, Germany are putting up a little bit of a fight.
They beat Uruguay in Uruguay.
Fantastic.
Maybe we do have a chance at international.
Was that Sevens?
Yeah, that was Sevens.
Oh.
Yeah. All right, I think that about wraps it up for this week. Yes. If you've made it all the way to the end, thank you for listening. Get involved in the comments, give this episode a like, send it to your friends, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.